Hello everybody, I'm Rick Janzen. Welcome to my fly tying channel. Chopaka Lake in eastern Washington has a productive mayfly hatch. And as it turns out, the fly that's developed specifically for that water has also turned out to be very useful in Lac Lejeune, Lac des Roches, Big Bar Lake, and other BC lakes. So let's take a look at tying this functional mayfly, the Chopaka May. Into my vise I have a Mustad number 14 regular shank dry fly hook. To that I am going to tie on my 6/0 light Cahill tying thread, and we're going to lay down a bed of that here behind the eye of the hook and cover the shank, because our first item to come in is a deer hair wing and we don't want it to spin on the bare shank of the hook. Now this is a number 14. This fly is usually tied between sizes 12 and 20. I like 14 and 16 as the most common sizes that I use when I'm out fishing. Now the first, like I said, is the order is a deer hair wing, and again we're not going too thick on that. We're going to keep it sparse because of the size of the fly. So if you cut off too much from the hide, just pull out the extra, and then you'll have about the right amount. So I'm using my deer hair stacker here to stack and get the tips aligned. And we give that a little shake, and then out come the deer hair, and they're all nicely aligned like that. And we'll get those pointed forward because we're going to be standing this wing up. So point that forward. Now getting the knack of the length of this is a little tricky, and one has to do it a few times before you get the actual proportions correct. But I like a fly with a wing that's as long as the shank of the hook from the bend here to the eye, and maybe a little less, but definitely not more. So in regards to that, when I'm putting it up against the hook, then looking at the length beyond the eye, and I'm going around 3 lengths beyond the eye there. I've got 1 or 2 fibers sticking out there extraneously. So I'm going to give that a couple of looser wraps and then tighter ones behind. So the loose wraps in front, the tighter ones behind. Then I pull up that deer hair wing and I get all those fibers up, and you see I've left a fair bit of room here at the eye. I don't want to crowd the eye, so I've a fair bit of room there to bring in our hackles later on. Now we grab the tag ends of these, bring our scissors in behind, and cut these at a ramp like that. And then we look for any extraneous ones we've missed and get them out of there. And I'm going to hold the wing while I wrap the thread over those butt ends, trying to capture them as much as I can. Now the ramp does a couple of things, but the most important thing is it helps build up the taper that we want. We want a wider thorax region of the fly than the abdomen, and this helps build up the bulk here at the front, and you can see it's already tapering down nicely. Don't worry about this wing tilting forward too much. We're going to come in front of that again with the thread to stand it up and the hackle. So I'm just slendering this down toward the bend of the hook, and wherein we'll tie our moose body hair tail. Now we use body hair. It's a little more slender than moose mane, and it has some very nice tips to it, very sharp pointy tips that we can use to represent the delicate tips of the tails on a mayfly. So I'm just looking for a couple there on the hide that I can select out that match nicely. Looks like I've got a pair there. and cut those out. And if they are at different lengths, like these are, then I'll just hold them in one hand, my left hand, and then pull the butt ends to align the tips, trying to get the longer one pulled down so it's even with the shorter one. There you go. And if they have any curl like these do, then I like to have the curl facing up, pointing up like that. And we'll bring it again for length, about the hook length shank of the hook there for a tail. We'll bring that in there. They have a fairly long tail, mayflies, and it's almost hard to go too long. I like to bring in one wrap of thread below them to perk them up, give them a little perky look, and then we'll cut off the tag ends here. So we've got those two very delicate but long tails there that are going to stick up nicely and represent and help float the tail of the fly in the surface film. For our body, we're going with moose mane. Now moose mane's coarser. I'm going with one long dark fiber, and you can see there are lighter fibers in there. So I'm going to pick one light fiber out, and then I'll demonstrate what we do with that. Because they're not light all the way to the end, you can see it's getting blonde and then it gets dark at the tip. So what I'm going to do is cut it off about there where it's still light. Then I will pair it up with the dark one, if I can get it in my hands. Looking to pick that one up. There we go. And we pair those up. And then tie them in here just at the tail, where the tail tie-in point is. And then we bring the thread forward, again keeping the thread narrow at the tail end there, and then we can increase the wraps toward the thorax of the fly to build up the bulk if we want to. Now I'm going to cut those tag ends off, and we'll bring that thread now forward to the deer hair wing, and I'm just filling in some of the gaps there in the thread to make it a more even bed for the moose mane to lie on. Okay. Now we're going to take those two fibers and bring them forward as a pair. We want those coming forward as two, and it'll give us the nice taper and segmentation of a mayfly adult done. Look at that. Just coming on there. Isn't that something? Beautiful looking taper there and the segmentation we're looking for. Now we capture that just behind the wing. And a wrap in front, and then cut that off. Okay, now at this point we can lift our wing back up and give a wrap or two in front, capturing that hair and pushing it back upright. There we go, it's got what we want. Our two hackle fibers is our blue dun, and we'll take that one and we'll spread the fibers out so we can capture the main stem of it here. We pull the deer hair wing back and wrap about 2 wraps of that in there, capture that and cut off the tag end. Don't have to do too many because we've got the grizzly coming in right behind it. And we're going to do 2 wraps on the grizzly, 2 or 3 actually, to capture that. And we're looking to find the right portion of the feather to bring that in. Again, we draw the deer hair back to get it out of the way. And a couple of wraps there, maybe one more, and we can cut off the tag end of that. Now we'll bring the thread forward, and we'll start with either one. Don't try doing them 2 at the same time. That's a disaster waiting to happen, and believe me, I've tried it. So 2 wraps behind what looks like 1 wrap, but it's really 2 or 1.5 behind, and then a couple in front, and then we tie it off. And what we're going to do is the same thing with the blue dun. Light blue dun. We'll give that a wrap and a half behind. We'll get that deer hair standing up again. 1, 2, and then a couple in front. 1, 2, and then we get that captured. Now it's time to cut that off. Now there's a lot of feather there yet, so save those. Don't throw those away. Those 2 hackles have a lot of life left in them, a lot of flies left. So I'm keeping those for ones I'm going to be tying later on. Now I'm going to wet the fingers of my left hand, finger and thumb, pull those hackle fibers back as much as I can capture there, and give that head a nice shape there. Every time I'm wrapping, I'm trying to capture a few more. And there we go. We've got most of those captured and a nice neat head building up here. A touch of super glue. I'm just going to trim off that errant one there on the thread, and a whip finish will complete the tying portion of this fly. Just a couple dribbles there, a few drops of super glue to go in the wraps, and a quick whip finish, and we've got the majority of our fly complete. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there is the tying portion. Support that, give it a tug, tighten all that knot up really nice. Now our last thing to do here, now we're done the tying, we've got a nice upright wing, is to trim the hackle fibers on the very bottom of the fly. We want the thorax and abdomen of this fly to lie in the surface film. And that's how the natural looks. The whole bottom of the body is in contact with the water surface, and it's what we want from our flies when we do the flies the same way. I'm just getting an errant deer hair out of the way there. So if you can see that, that's what's in contact with the surface. Very realistic looking fly. You got that hackle standing out as legs and that upright wing. The three salient features here of a mayfly: that long slender tail, the tapered, gently tapered, segmented body, and the upright wing. I think you can't do much better than that. Great little fly, and you're going to enjoy some good luck. It's so fun to see the trout come up and dimple these off the surface. Good luck to you, tight lines. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to my channel and sharing this with your friends who may also enjoy it. All the best. Thank you for watching.